From horrifying night shifts to the doors of the restaurant opening and closing mysteriously, these are 3 real-life restaurant horror stories that will make you think twice before taking a seat at your favorite diner. Ghost Hunt. A few years back, Julian found herself working at a small, privately owned restaurant situated on a quaint main street in a tiny, historic community. This restaurant stood out among the locals and tourists due to its diverse menu, offering everything from American cuisine to Indian, Thai, French, and Middle Eastern dishes. This small restaurant had once been a beloved, privately owned Chinese restaurant cherished by the locals. However, the elderly owner who ran it tragically passed away inside the restaurant one day. Consequently, the town's residents did not take kindly to the arrival of a city woman who purchased the restaurant shortly after his death. Juliana's former boss, who was not only flaky and irresponsible, but also sometimes came across as curt and rude, faced challenges obtaining the necessary permits to renovate the historic building. To complicate matters, certain renovations in an old building like this triggered local laws that required expensive updates. As a result, she decided to use the staff she had hired, including Julian, to assist with most of the renovation work. Initially, everything seemed to be proceeding smoothly with nothing out of the ordinary. That was until one overcast, drizzly day when they gathered in the dining area for staff meeting. As they sat quietly listening to the boss, something peculiar occurred. The front entrance door to the restaurant suddenly opened halfway and then closed carefully after a moment, as if someone had entered and left. However, there was no one spotted on the other side since the door was mostly glass, and they would have seen anyone. They exchanged confused glances, but attributed it to a breeze, considering that the back door was open, albeit separated by a closed set of kitchen doors. Another strange incident involved a co-worker who was at the restaurant alone one night. According to her, shortly after turning a corner past the shelf with tools, an empty cordless drill case flew past her head, narrowly missing her and crashing into the wall. She seemed quite disturbed when she recounted the experience to us in the kitchen the next day. Following these events, sporadic peculiar incidents continued. Juliana's boss occasionally asked them why someone hadn't entered her office when she saw one of us walking by her open door, even though none of us had passed her office during those times. Additionally, we heard faint voices and doors opening or closing unexpectedly and occasionally. The ingredients Juliana had set out for recipes mysteriously disappeared within seconds when she stepped away briefly to grab another item from the back shelf. However, the most terrifying paranormal experience occurred later. To describe this, let's look at certain aspects of the restaurant's kitchen. In a typical restaurant kitchen, there is a cook line that is narrow, either walking or standing space, flanked by ovens, fryers, a cooktop on one side, prep surfaces, and small fridges on the other. A 3 to 4 foot walking aisle forms the cook line. The dishwasher is usually located outside the cook line, with additional fridges, freezers, and other kitchen equipment further away. In this environment, various appliances create constant ambient background noise. One day, 3 of them were working in the kitchen. Juliana and her boss were on the cook line, and another employee was on dishwasher duty. Everything was normal until suddenly the ambient noise ceased. It was as if an invisible soundproof curtain had fallen over them, plunging them into absolute silence. They all exchanged puzzled looks. "What the hell?" Juliana exclaimed. "Why is it so eerily quiet all of a sudden?" the dishwasher asked, the dishwasher looking suspicious. Juliana's boss too seemed unsettled, and she replied nervously, "I don't know," her voice trailing off. She turned to Juliana, who was standing directly behind her on the narrow cook line, and she instructed Juliana to check if the fridges and hood fans were running. "Maybe the power is out," she suggested. Juliana walked a short distance outside the cook line to investigate, and to her surprise, she heard the hood fans, the dishwasher, the hot water heater, and all the fridges and freezers running normally. Juliana returned to her boss and reported that everything was functioning fine. Oddly, as soon as she stepped back onto the cook line to relay this information to her, the silence enveloped them once more. "Well, Juliana, get back to work grilling those peppers." She snapped, and Juliana complied. After a few minutes, Juliana began to experience tunnel vision, dizziness, and nausea. She informed her boss, who advised her to step outside for fresh air. Juliana followed her suggestion. While she was outside, she overheard her boss making a phone call from her office, which was diagonally across from the back door, separated only by a screen door. She sounded urgent and shaky as she asked the person on the other end for an abalone shell sage and some peculiar oil. It turned out that she needed these items because, according to her, she had sensed something malevolent walk through her on the cook line. The unsettling part was that Juliana had been standing right behind her, inches away, on that cooking line. Juliana waited until she finished her call and returned to the cook line before re-entering. By that time, everything sounded normal again. As Juliana finished her shift about an hour later, she drove home in record time, taking just under 30 minutes for the usually 45-minute journey. Throughout the night, Juliana struggled to sleep, feeling on edge. When she did manage to drift into slumber, she was abruptly awakened multiple times by terrifying visions of a screaming demon-like figure right in front of her face. Now, before we move on, subscribe to Top Scares Now for spine-tingling horror stories. If you dare, hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us your favorite tales and suggest what eerie stories you crave next. Don't miss out on the frights. Subscribe, like, and join the thrill seekers. The Night Jogger. I haven't really had too many creepy events in my life, but this one probably works. At the time this happened, I was living in Seattle, somewhat near Ballard. I am a night crawler. That is, I stay up late working online as I was an online worker. So one night, I got an unusual craving for some crap food, and I decided to drive over to Ballard's to stop at McDonald's around 3 a.m. On the way over, it was extremely quiet. No cars were seen driving, and several lights seemed to be out, which just adds to the eerie evening. I stopped at a stoplight, and a block to my right is where McDonald's is located. As soon as I reached the light where I could see around the building between the light and McD's, I saw something white in my peripheral vision, which disappeared because of the building between me and the restaurant. I instantly thought, oh well, maybe it's just someone jogging. Then, when I actually started using my brain, I was wondering why someone would be jogging this early or late, and I then assumed it was my imagination from staring at a computer screen for so long. When I turned to the right corner and was almost turning into the McDonald's parking lot, I saw on the other end of the parking lot some guy bent over behind a bush, trying to catch his breath or something. He was wearing white shorts, a white t-shirt, white sneakers, and white wristbands. As I pulled into the parking lot and made my way to the other side, his side, to get to the drive-thru, he started moving in my direction. When I saw him walking towards me and the McDonald's, I just assumed he was going to go inside to get something. It looked bright enough inside to presume people could still order inside, though I'm not sure if this was the case, because no one was there. I was going pretty slowly, so I obviously didn't hit the guy, but he was taking a while to cross the parking lot, so I veered to the right. And as I did so, the jogger quit his initial direction to the direction where I was and started walking left to be in front of my car. Once he did this, I swayed to the right, assuming he had a change of plans or something. And when I did that, he cut back to the right and got in front of my car again. By this point, he was directly in front of my headlights, and I could see him better. His glasses were probably 2 inches thick, which at least doubled his eye size, and he had extremely pale skin. His hair looked like it hadn't been washed in a while, but that could have been from him running around. He was staring directly at me, and as he approached my car, I stopped completely. At first, I thought he was going to ask me something, but as he started walking along the driver's side of my car, he picked up speed, and instinctively, I immediately locked the doors of my car. The jogger comes up to my door and starts jiggling the door handle, trying to get in. I look at him, and he has an expressionless face and these huge eyes just looking into my soul. I was in no mood to start something with this crazy guy, and I had a feeling going through the drive-thru wasn't a good idea either, so I started driving forward through the opposite end of the lot to get away. The jogger is still trying to open the door while I was leaving the parking lot. When I turn to the corner out of the lot and start going down the block, he starts pounding on the glass for a short time. And once he realizes that's not going to do anything, and I'm starting to pick up speed, the jogger takes his fingers and wedges them between the door and the car frame. I went about 2 blocks with this guy hanging on primarily by his fingertips. I think I got up to 30 miles per hour before his wedging skills failed, and I heard him hit the ground and saw him roll for a couple in my rearview mirror, and he nearly got to his feet and started to chase my car. I took a left onto the next street so that I could eventually start heading back home. The guy cut through a parking lot that was on the corner and almost caught up to my car, but he wasn't fast enough to get to me. It ended with him slowly coming to a halt in the middle of the road. This entire time, not one other person was seen driving or walking the street of the fast food place or anything. I felt completely alone with some creepy-looking jogger. Since then, I have kept my cravings under control. There was no way I was going to try for the drive-thru again that late. The horrific night shift. I worked the night shift at a Myrtle Beach hotel some years ago. It was fine all season, just families and in-site security. The winter or off-season was different. We had frightening guests owing to the low weekly costs. By recruiting snowbirds, retired people who frequented the beach for a month or more, the idea was to make money off-season. Although winter wasn't always good, inexpensive prices enabled unpleasant elements to settle. Breakdowns in meth labs and violent attacks have been observed during the winter third shift. I'd meet interesting people. In cold weather, homeless people came for free coffee and comfort. If they didn't misbehave, I'd let them have coffee and warm up. Despite my many unusual stories, this one ended terribly. I have had a good night so far. After going to an independent wrestling performance with my closest friend before work, I offered to come in an hour early the next night for the young girl who worked the second shift in return for her working an hour late for me, so I could ironically enjoy the wrestling show. That night, I watched the nasty and gory wrestler Terry Funk. Little did I know I'd see the worst of that night. She worked over an hour, and I was anticipated at midnight. I generally arrived at 11 p.m. She explained her shift, and I recorded the register. Andrew, my friend, pulled up as she departed as usual. He kept this and our other 2 hotels on second shift. He fed us after work and let us play World of Warcraft on our laptops. I told him I liked the wrestling performance and showed him my Terry Funk t-shirt as he collected my lunch money and prepared to leave. Business was slow that day. Entering the back office to hang the clothes, I heard the doorbell signaling a customer. I turned when I heard a yell, but couldn't comprehend what was going on. Andrew collapsed in front of me at the doorway. A man around the corner hits me in the head with a short pipe. It knocked me kneeling. He then hits me in the head with the pipe. The second individual, whom I hadn't seen, claims he ran and contacted a cop leaving the door. Finally, I stood. I called the cops from the rear office phone, but the network had trouble going through. I slammed it in anger. I was scared and hurt. My anxiousness was tremendous. I raced to close the door in case they returned. Not knowing Andrew's whereabouts scared me. I called 911 with blood pouring from my head. I reported the attack to the operator and requested police assistance and an ambulance. After calling the second hotel, we rushed to notify Travis, the night manager for all 3 sites. He thought I was playing a prank on him since we pranked each other while bored. I said he'd better lock up and come down, and I wasn't joking. The police ambulance arrived, so I opened the door. Andrew, who was sucker punched and knocked down, leaped over the desk and escaped as a cop drove by. He ran to the cop for help. In the emergency room, I received 10 scalp stitches and morphine to ease the pain I was feeling. I couldn't go home, so the doctors and nurses paid for a cab after treatment. Christmas was coming, so I decided to work in December. They gave me a week off to recover and put me on the other hotel's night shift for a month in case they were after me. I was never told why they attacked me. After this incident, I'm glad I no longer work the night shift at the hotel, since the neighborhood is dangerous. Dare to challenge your nerves? If this video didn't send shivers down your spine, the next one awaits. Dive into a night of cozy horror with our Reddit horror stories on your screen. Click to watch now and see if you've got what it takes for a chilling evening. Embrace the scare. Your cozy nightmares await.